Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible and honestly kind of overlooked turning points in the history of civil disobedience and women's rights. We're talking about the 1930s Salt Satyagraha in India. Now, you probably already know the basics, right? Mahatma Gandhi's famous march to the sea to protest the British salt tax. But the true story, the actual catalyst for massive social change and female empowerment, that lies in the unsung actions of Indian women who absolutely refused to just sit on the sidelines.
Let's start with a really intense question. Would you, right now, walk straight into baton strikes without raising a single hand to protect yourself? It takes a frankly unimaginable level of bravery to commit to true nonviolent resistance when you are staring down brutal physical violence. And, as we're going to see in this explainer, this exact brand of frontline courage was demonstrated by thousands of women in 1930.
Section 1. Breaking the Barrier. Gandhi's Reluctance versus Women's Resolve.
Okay, let's set the scene. During the early planning of the Salt March, Mahatma Gandhi's original plan actually kept women completely out of the main action. It came from a misguided sense of protection, you know? He felt it would be cowardly for men to use women as a shield in such a dangerous protest. So he figured women were better suited for safer, more domestic assignments like spinning khadi, which is hand-spun cloth, and picketing liquor shops. He genuinely thought this would build their self-confidence safely. But man, the reality of what Indian women actually did was a total 180 from that. They completely rejected being sidelined. They demanded to lead the marches, actively break the salt laws, and face those police batons right alongside and sometimes even ahead of the men.
So how in the world did they change Gandhi's mind? Enter Kamaladevi Chattopadhyay. She was a brilliant activist and social reformer who personally met with Gandhi and flat out persuaded him to let women join the core of the movement. And her logic was absolutely genius. She said, as women naturally preside over culinary operations, salt is for them the most intimate and indispensable ingredient. I mean, it's a fantastic argument, right? She took this simple, everyday kitchen staple, a totally domestic item, and transformed it into a literal weapon of mass revolution. The British tax made the cost of salt prohibitive, which hit the home directly. So who better to lead the charge than the women who ran those very homes?
And she didn't just talk the talk, she walked the walk. 500. This wasn't just a handful of women quietly protesting in the background. On April 16, 1930, Kamaladevi herself led over 500 people to the Wadala salt depot near Bombay to actively break the British salt laws. One eyewitness even reported seeing a woman literally climbing through barbed wire just to fill her sari with salt from the mound. The scale of their participation right out of the gate was massive and incredibly organized.
Section 2. Taking the front lines. The brutality at Darsana.
Now, this is where the movement hits a massive dramatic climax, and women step into the ultimate leadership roles when things get incredibly dangerous. The British cracked down hard. Mahatma Gandhi was arrested on May 4th. His successor, Abhastyabji, also arrested, so suddenly the men in charge were gone. With the leadership completely decapitated, a woman, Sarojini Naidu, took over the whole operation. She led 2,500 nonviolent satyagrahis toward the Darsana salt works, staring down a heavily armed force of 400 police officers. Before they marched, she told her people they would be beaten, but under absolutely no circumstances could they use violence or even raise a hand to ward off the blows.
The reality of what happened that day was captured by an American journalist named Webb Miller, and his firsthand account is honestly chilling. He wrote about hearing the sickening whacks of clubs, seeing the ground quilted with bodies all sodden with blood. Miller reported that these marchers just walked forward in columns, submitting to being beaten in insensibility without raising a single arm to fend off the blows. He counted 320 injured and reported multiple fatalities. This extreme police brutality, contrasted right against the invincible nonviolence of the marchers led by Naidu, completely shocked the world. It directly called the entire legitimacy of British rule into question.
Section 3. A nationwide ripple effect. Women rise up across India.
You see, this incredible bravery didn't just happen in a vacuum. The actions at Dandi and Darsana ignited a massive, unstoppable wave of female participation all across the map. Women everywhere were stepping completely out of their traditional domestic roles. Let's look at a few. In Orissa, Ramadevi Chaudhary went village to village, eventually leading the Salt Satyagraha at Intradi and Srijong and facing multiple arrests. Over in Mindapur, we have Matangini Hazra, a fierce Gandhian fondly known as Old Lady Gandhi. She broke the Salt Act, was arrested, and later actually became a martyr for the independence movement. Up in Punjab, Ladharani Zuchi mobilized educated elite women for public picketing, showing that this movement completely crossed class lines. And down in Madras, Rukmini Lakshmipati made history by becoming the very first female prisoner of the entire Salt Satyagraha. Everywhere you looked across the whole country, women were holding the line.
Section 4, From Salt to Suffrage, the ultimate political payoff.
So, what did this all lead to? Well, the actions of these women weren't just about the price of salt. They were laying the absolute groundwork for an organized push for the female vote and constitutional rights. See, for years, the British government had deemed Indian women unfit for the franchise. Their main argument? They pointed to the social condition of purdah, or seclusion, and a general lack of education. They basically argued that because women lived in seclusion, they couldn't possibly participate in voting. But the Salt Satyagraha completely shattered that myth. I mean, when thousands of women are actively marching in the streets, breaking laws, and facing down police batons, you really can't argue they are secluded or unfit for public life anymore.
This heroine's journey maps out a truly remarkable trajectory of progress. Think about this timeline. Back in 1917, Indian women organized their first deputation to demand the female vote based on equal rights to serve the nation. By 1930, they are literally leading the vanguard of the Salt Satyagraha, proving just how vital their role was in the fate of the country. And the ultimate payoff arrives in 1950. Following independence, the Indian Constitution is enacted, officially granting universal adult suffrage. And guess what? 15 Indian women, including leaders from the 1930 protests like Sarojini Naidu, actually helped draft that very constitution. Their frontline sacrifice directly secured their rights as citizens. Talk about a full-circle moment.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. How can a simple fistful of salt redefine citizenship and break modern social barriers today? It is such a powerful reminder that the most ordinary ingredients, when picked up by marginalized people demanding their rights, can absolutely dismantle the strongest, most entrenched systems of power in the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this sparks you to look deeper into the incredible, completely unstoppable history of these women.